to Tearsheet on our website, on our podcast. It is a theme almost unprecedented. I would say it's unprecedented, at least in my decade that I've been covering the financial services industry. And we're not out of it yet. And so I think this is an ongoing story. It's one I think that deserved to be told here, and will continue to be. History will look at this time period and say, "Wow, look, you guys did some amazing things." So I applaud each and every one of you in all of your roles and anything you do. So let's bring up our next guest, Kim.
Hi, Zach.
Hello, Kim. Can you? There you go.
And
Yes.
I just want to change my background really quick because I'm picky about that. It matters. I'm going to put myself on the trading floor just because. Give some of my colleagues a little taste of what it used to feel like and why COVID is never going to put us back to the way we were. Anyway.
I take it you're not on the trading floor and you're broadcasting from home.
Correct. I am home in New Jersey. Lucky me.
So before we start, Kim, can you introduce yourself and tell a little bit about your background and your role?
Sure. Kim Prado. I work for RBC Capital Markets, and I'm responsible for client banking and digital technology across capital markets. Previous to that, I ran technology for all the different trading businesses across markets. You name it, I've done it. So lived through lots of huge incidents in the industry, and happy to be here today.
Amazing. Thank you for joining us. And I guess as a segue from what you just said, how has this incident, I use in quotation marks, has this compared to some of the other things you've experienced in your career?
Oh, I don't think it does. I mean, so, I think back to when Sandy hit and I got the call from the guy who runs the data center who says, "Kim, I'm walking around with a flashlight on my head. What machine should I turn on first?" And I'm like, I guess market data. I don't know. And I think back to 9/11, right? When the towers fell. I mean, I worked in Tower 1 in the first one. I mean, and the blackout and on and on. I mean, we test for all kinds of scenarios over, all the time, but we never tested to have our producers at home. That has been interesting, to say the least. Just a totally different experience, right? We're always failing over between data centers. We're never failing over between people's homes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Never thought of it that way. Oh, so let's use that as to get to our first question. So what was your first response as you began to see COVID's impact making its presence felt in your organization?
Yeah. So, I was just immediately, when I saw this was getting worse and worse, I had said to my team, let's just work from home. And this was before RBC sent us home. I'm like, you guys can come in, but I'm not coming in. So I see no problem logging in from home. And then 3 days later, they sent everybody home. And immediately, I just put a few key things in place, like daily attendance, like who's where was my biggest concern, right? Because of managing a global team and being responsible for all these people, I wanted to make sure everybody was safe. So that was the first and foremost, most important thing, was making sure everybody was where they should be. And then from there, we had to work with the business at the same time. Number one was let the business know where we are and how to interact with us, and how to make sure that they knew there was nothing they couldn't ask us for, right? Because I'm not part of infrastructure. So that, normally they would be like, well, my team would say, oh, go to the help desk, but everybody's the help desk right now. And then the third thing, really ties in with that, which is really all hands on deck and getting calls coordinated with infrastructure, as well as with other dev teams and other parts of the bank. For example, just take Zoom and WebEx and video and connectivity. I mean, we never worried about that. And now I was worrying about what kind of Wi-Fi people had in their home. I'm like, wait a second, that's slow? Well, do you have BIOS? Talk to me about your home setup. Go to the Verizon homepage. It got crazy. So yeah, and then, right away, week 2, that Monday, we did a town hall with my team, and we invited all of tech, and, we had over 1,000 people joined this town hall I just wanted to make sure of two things. One, that, the community knew we were here and we were all working together, and don't worry, it's going to be okay. We'll get through this too. And two, I wanted to test our WebEx software out to make sure that it didn't fall over, which it did, but they fixed it. And because we were about to launch virtual conferences. So
wow,
that was my experience.
So I guess as a corollary to that, Kim, it sounds like communication, you even called your company a community. Like, it sounds like communication was core in these early stages. Can you talk a little bit, I guess, and some of the early conversations sound like they were more ad hoc. Did that become more formalized as time went on? Like, how has communication changed during this era?
Yeah, so the communication came from the top down, right? And I would say at every level of the organization, there was notes going out every day, getting, people coordinating more, more efficiently than us doing our thing. The head of technology is amazing at RBC, and he really brought everybody together and made sure that, there was nothing that we couldn't do. Like, if you needed a monitor, you ordered a monitor. If you didn't have a computer, we sent a computer to your house, right? You'd be amazed how many business people are running on horrible infrastructure in their houses. I mean, we were sending routers, setting up extra Wi-Fi. I mean, I can't even go there. But I would say the communication was everything, because that was the key to keeping people calm and sane, and also supportive, across on the human side. I mean, everybody knew somebody who was going through this, and, you just wanted people to not feel the pressure for delivery as much as normal. Like, I'm probably one of the hardest people to work for when it comes to delivery. It's horrible to say, but it's the truth. And even I was trying to calm down on delivery, right? Like, people first, right? And then worrying about everything else. And I mean, just to give you some size, I mean, RBC is not one of the larger banks in the US, but overall globally, we have 86,000 plus people at home. That's a lot of people at home.
Yes.
Across our retail, bank, insurance, wealth, capital markets, INTS. So, so what we did was, from the communication side, we partnered with the broader bank, right? And, we just came together that way.
Got it. Wow. Yeah, that challenge sounds amazing. So if I understand correctly, your end customer are the bankers at RBC. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's the bankers and the market salespeople and the originators. It's everybody but the traders, for the record.
So what was the voice of the customer saying during this time period? What were their needs?
Well, their needs were pretty interesting, right? It was like, Kim, I only have one monitor. Can you, I don't know how to hook another one in, right? Like, stuff like that was going on quite a bit around the infra. But once they got set up, it turned into bigger issues like screen sharing, right? Like, our compliance folks have pretty strict rules around screen sharing, video cameras. None of that has ever been allowed on the trading floors, as well as for the bankers. And they needed it immediately. In fact, every laptop was locked down. The video cameras locked down on every one. So the poor infrastructure people had to go in and unlock, put rules in to fix things. And then printing was another big one, because we don't want people printing at home. And now we had issues around who's taking pictures of their screens. It was getting interesting, to the point where this was a funny call we had, where somebody in operational risk goes, maybe what we should do for the two people we're going to allow to print, maybe we should have them attest to the fact that they have a shredder in their house and send us a picture. I was like, seriously, I'm going. I gotta go. So that was pretty funny. There was lots of issues around odds and ends, but really the biggest issue for us was that our customers wanted to use Zoom, and we don't allow it. So you're going through my home iPad, just so you know, because Zoom does not work at RBC properly. So Zoom and Google Hangout is locked down, and it's causing us a lot of stress. We finally came up with a solution to solve for that. But I mean, it took us time, We had a lot of uptight people being, pretty annoyed over that.
So that leads me to my next question. So when you say your customers, your end customers, the bank's customers wanted to use Zoom, is it correct?
Yes.
So what else were your what else did your customers want? What were they saying they needed during this time?
You know what? They're looking for, a more digital experience, right? And I have to say, we've been down this journey for quite a while already. So we got very lucky because we've been working on our digital strategy for 7 years, literally, starting with the customer experience. And this is where I spend a lot of my time working with the fintechs and so on to figure out the next best way of analyzing data, making it smart, right, and serving it up in a customized client way. And it really paid off, because when you think about it, what does your customer want? They want simplicity. It's really that basic, right? You got to take the complexity out and make it easy. So we got lucky that we've had a mobile strategy going for quite some time, and that it's just being able to deliver desktop and mobile is really critical right now, right? Like, especially in a world where a PC may not work, you may not know your password, and you can't print. So it's like you need your iPad, you need your desktop, and you need your laptop going. And so being able to provide the client analytics on an iPad has been huge. So that's been a big piece of what we've been focused on.
Got it. So I guess some of those restrictions or some of those requirements, I guess, impact the customer experience along the way. So as you guys are leading and driving the new customer experience in this new world, how do you envision the customer experience changing?
Oh, I think it's going to change forever. I mean, I think we've learned a lot through this, right? Our travel budgets are at zero. Nobody's gone anywhere. That's the first thing. And we're having a record year. They're doing great, right? The market's doing great. So what's the correlation? Do you really need to get on those planes? As much as I miss getting on a plane every now and again right now, I never thought I would say that out loud. It's, I think they're going to rethink the engagement model a little bit and, look at a virtual workplace a little bit more, and, creating that true client experience is probably the most important thing we can do right now, and mapping out the client journeys and understanding from a workflow perspective what else we can do to make it easier and more engaging. In fact, we've been running our conferences on time, on schedule, just virtually, using different types of fintechs to drive engagement. And it's been actually really fun doing it. Like, it's a whole piece of work we never dreamed we would be asked to do. So
can you talk about that a little more? Because you said you don't think we're going back to the old ways. If people are working from home, performance is great. Let's talk a little bit more about specifics around the customer journey. Like, are they going to be coming into physical locations anymore? Like, and what tools are they going to look for?
I think that'll always exist, right? But I think it'll probably be a little bit less than it used to be, right? I think the days of saying to your manager, well, I need to go see them in person, you may get questioned, right? Like, well, do you really? Can't you just do a video conference from your house? Like, it worked for 6 months. So I think people are going to question things. I'm all for going back into the office at some point. Like, I find it quite difficult working from home with my 2 kids. It's been an experience and a half. Just this house, anything can happen during this webinar, just so you know.
Oh yes, we've experienced that as well.
I installed an inside lock to the room I'm in, which as far as I can go.
Do you have a portable generator as well? Because that's what we have running here.
Yeah.
Just in case.
Yeah. Well, we got it all. I mean, I'm well wired up and organized.
So for my next question, it almost sounds like, Kim, you were talking about like 2 different phases. There's that initial sort of exploratory phase. What's going on? How do we get people's monitors hooked up? And now you're like sort of hunkering down for, getting back to whatever your business as usual is. how did you move from that stage of like kind of thinking and planning and moving into action? Like what can you take us through sort of that phase?
Yeah, I mean, it boils down to this, being a cost center and part of technology, it's important to earn your keep every day, right? Like, you don't want the business to forget about you. This is one of those situations where if you're not a good communicator, you're going to have a problem. And it's the time to reach out and talk to your clients about what they're experiencing, what they need, and what you can do. Because for the first time ever, technology is more important than anything on the trading, anything on the planet right now for them. And so they're so engaged. The business engagement with us and my team is through the roof. It's always been okay. I'd give it a medium, right? But it's an extra high right now because they realize that, you know what, they need to care and they need to do more with the data that we already serve up to them, and they want to learn more because they have more time on their hands. And so we have the opportunity now to talk more with WebEx. So since we're always on WebEx, right, we can actually show them stuff as we're talking versus going by their desk with a notepad, right? So it's forced us to work more digitally efficient, as well as them to realize how important what we're doing for them is and more engaged. So, to get there, it was just one of these days where it just kind of happened. Like, I think after 8 weeks, everybody realized they better hunker down. We're not going anywhere. So we got to just figure this out. And, we figured it out and everybody just got on with it.
Amazing. And I know, throughout the course of our discussion, you talked about the responses that RBC has taken. Can you talk, I guess, maybe at the organizational level, like what have been the changes going through this experience has been for RBC?
I think the big changes have been people have been more patient, which is something I never dreamed would happen, and more like willing to work with us. And, I think at every level, people have been more engaging, starting all the way at the top, all the way down the organization. And I think part of that is because they realize, wait a second, there's other things in life besides, work. So I would say that's been huge. Another thing has been the fact that the management team has been communicating more than ever, right? Like, they always communicate, but now it's like, I feel like every day there's a town hall for something, which is good. But really, it's business as usual. It really is.
So I just want to go back to actually your introduction. You talked a little bit about yourself, but I want to hear more about your background. And I think through your own eyes, how you think that positioned you to be able to deal with what's going on now.
Well, I think because I've been through so many experiences on the street, but starting with 9/11, going all the way across, I mean, it takes a lot to rattle me, like a lot, right? And so, I ran production services actually for 4 years, all the global trading floors at RBC. It was my first job at RBC. And because I did that job, I think I just have the instinct to react and just get in triage mode. Like if the ship's sinking, I'm like good at like just not freaking out and just getting order around the chaos. It's just my personality. But I think it's also just from having all the experience living through multiple things that, I mean, even in 93, I was in Sovereign World Trade, 1993 when the bomb went off. So like from then all the way bring me to today. I mean, yeah. So I think my background helped me.
Great.
Definitely.
Yeah, I guess we'll be talking again at the next crisis and about how that.
Oh yeah, yeah. We'll talk about. Oh, remember when that? Yeah. The bigger crisis is my house right now. Just so you know, that's the bigger crisis.
So, Kim, I want to ask you. You mentioned mobile a couple times about its role. Can you talk about the role mobile plays now, and I guess how you see it playing in the future?
Absolutely. So mobile was an afterthought. I'll be honest with you. Like, we always felt it was important to build our UIs, using reactive technology, making sure responsive technology, and making sure that everything we did would fit on an iPad or on a phone. But we didn't have like the strongest strategy around how it holistically comes together. And all I can say is thank God somebody was thinking about it, even though I didn't ask them to think about it. So our head of UI UX has been, very focused on making sure that we have a plan there. And I never really paid that much attention to it because like in the markets business, mobile's a nice to have. It's not an imperative, right? And by the way, compliance shuts 90% of it off. So why bother, except for the CRM perhaps. And then on the banking side, it's the complete opposite. Everything is on the iPad because they're never in the office. The bankers are always on the road. So we've had a very good focus on the banking side for mobile, but not on markets. And so what this pandemic has enabled us to do is actually bring our mobile strategy to a whole different level of maturity very quickly. And it's exciting because now we're able to offer pretty much everything that's on the desktop on the mobile device, minus being able to enter a trade ticket. And our business never thought we would get there, right? Like they thought I was kidding when I said, listen, no more PowerPoint, no more presentations. You bring your iPad to the client, right? Well, now they're just presenting their screen to the client because they don't have a choice.
Well,
so
what changed?
Yeah,
like
it came together quickly.
Was this a technology sort of advancement, or is it just getting everybody on the same page quickly? Like,
it was both. I would say it was both. The technology is getting better by the second, in the mobile space, and then add on the need from the business is, just really force the team to focus on it and bring it to the next level. And, I'm really proud of the App Store that RBC has and the way we've been able to put apps into it so easily. And this is something else we learned through this is meeting people in the enterprise. Like we don't really work that close with the bank, the retail side, that whole side of the house. But if you think about it, they've been doing mobile forever because people open bank accounts in Canada at RBC's branches, right? So when this all went down, that was the guy I called. I'm like, okay, let's find who does this for the people who manages a personal banking account app, right? Because they clearly know what they're doing. So that's how we got moving.
So that takes me back, I guess, also to your title. We had a question come from one of the people in the audience, said global head of client banking and digital channels technologies. Like, can you explain how those all fit together?
They kind of don't sometimes. I mean, it's one of those things when you stay somewhere, you end up with lots of jobs. So I have lots of jobs. But they do all tie together essentially. So client covers any client interaction between our internal salespeople and the clients, as well as our bankers and the clients, right? Anything that happens there. So I own our CRM, I own all our client-facing tech, our client, anything related to client is my team. And then on the banking side, it ties in very close with clients because you have the whole prospecting flow. You have the leads. How are you generating leads automatically leveraging data, right? The whole MarTech piece tied in with the fact that now we're going to be underwriting new bonds and IPOs and all that. So on the ECM and DCM side. So client and banking are very tightly coupled just as coupled as client and salespeople. And then when you look at digital is all of our websites, all of our web properties that go outside. So if you go to rbccm.com, that's our external site, RBC Capital Markets. And from there, you get access into all the client-facing, applications as well as our websites. And yes, we have work to do there, and it's slated for next year. So give me a break on that. You take a look.
Take a breather.
Need some work there.
What role, I guess, you mentioned MarTech, but what role did vendors and partners play, I guess, in your ability to get up and running and moving quickly
Critical.
to your customers?
Yeah,
Can you talk about some of those? Yeah.
Yeah, so like we use On24 is one of the companies that we talk to, that we use for part of our virtual conferences. Socialize is another one. On the actual web, app side, we use OpenFin for everything. We wrap all our UIs, all our UI components, everything is wrapped in OpenFin, and our whole Springboard strategy, we got very lucky that we had that. So, the way I like to look at things is in 3 steps. You're going to take in data, you're going to map data, you're going to take in as much information as you can and institutionalize it, and then layer some type of intelligence on top. Not going to use AI because I think it's overplayed, but some type of analytics on top to tell the business something or send a signal to do something, and then serve it up in a unique, easy to use customer experience or client experience. And really that strategy has served me well because it applies to pretty much everything we're doing across client and banking and digital. And so the digital piece is the last piece of that strategy where, it's all about closing that loop, right? So who's coming to the websites? What are they looking at? Are they clients already? Are they prospects? Is it a charity that RBC may want to, work with? Or is it a prospective employee we may want to hire? So how do we take all that intelligence, tie it with our CRM, and then serve it up as actionable insights to the business? So whoever asked me about my role, that's what I do.
So don't test me on that later because I may not be able to.
I'm going to
encapsulate all that. But so you use the word Springboard as the name of your product. Can you take us through what that product is and sort of its tentacles? And
yeah, it's really the most basic thing on the planet. It's a way to launch applications, right? But it's a way to launch HTML5 applications and tie them in with other technologies through interoperability. So we leverage the OpenFin bus for interoperability because we didn't want to build it, right? I know lots of banks have probably built that component. If you built it, I don't know why. Anyway, just kidding. So by using the interop, right? So from the Springboard, you launch all your different applications. So think about your phone, right? You go to the Apple or whatever, the Google Play Store, and you download an app. That's how Springboard works. You go to the Springboard, and it gives you a list of everything you're entitled to and what you're allowed to use, right? And so you pick your apps, and then you're on your way. But say you're in your Salesforce.com app, your CRM or Tier 1, and you want to see how your client interactions, next to your trades that were done. Well, you don't want to have to go to another app, right? And if we it'll take us years to bring all the data into so instead of trying to rebuild every system and bring everything together, we're able to provide a lot of the seamless workflow through the interop. And so the Springboard is how you launch it, how you launch your apps, and then how they work together. And one of the big things that's going on in the industry through open source, and I'm a big fan of open source, is the whole concept of FDC3 protocol and really building things in that protocol. So this way you can actually reuse it. And so say I put something out open source in that protocol and another bank wants to use it. If they know FDC3, it's like XML, right? It's like plug and play. So the whole concept of the Springboard is built around the concept of, simplicity, interop, open source, and access in a way that you don't need to go to the help desk.
That makes a lot of sense. And when you referred to the App Store before, how is that integrated into Springboard?
It's similar in that, I couldn't call it the RBC App Store because we already had one. That was for mobile, but we don't have one for desktop. And so I really should have named it the RBC App Store for desktop, but that would have upset a lot of people. So I kept it as Springboard.
Okay, switching gears completely. I just noticed we have, of the Resilience Conference over 3 days, we have 4 women speakers and out of 20. And unfortunately, that's not uncommon in our industry. And I guess I want to know, from you, do you see sort of a leveling of the playing field? Does COVID, working from home, does this change sort of inter-office politics, dynamics, anything like that?
No,
Tell us what you think.
not at all. It's the same. It's the same. And, you know, so I think I was promoted to MD, I want to say probably 8 years ago or so. And, you know, I didn't, you know, like I sit around a table with all men and it's fine, right? But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter, right? You know, it's like I just happen to have 50% women in my team, but I didn't go look for it. It just one day I realized, wait a second, we have half women in our team. Like, you know, it's just, you got to put the right people in the right role. But I do strongly believe in the whole diversity piece and paying attention, right? Because it's those who don't pay attention that are missing out, right? Like, whether it doesn't matter whether it's, you know, who it is and what their background is or and what they are. It's all about having different opinions to create a better product, right? Like, the more diverse your table is, the better your product's going to be. And we've proven that over and over again in my team. Like, I have the most diverse team, and it's amazing how different of an approach we have versus other tech teams that I've seen. So, I mean, I think it truly does play a part, and I think everybody needs to pay attention to it and be cognizant of it. But I also still believe in putting the right person in the right role.
So
that answers it.
Yeah, it does. But I think I have a follow-up question. Actually, my partner, Aaron Singer, who's also on with us, I think wants to ask a follow-up question there. So.
Oh boy.
Hey, Kim, great to have you here. And so, yeah, like to us, like we've been, we also have more than 50% of Tearsheet is women. And that wasn't like, it just so happens to be. Like, we've been really, we're trying to be very, like, that's our policy, that we say, you know, there are 50% of the women in the world. And so, you know, there should be 50% women in Tearsheet. But I think that, like, I like that you also turned around and said, hey, we found the best person for the best, you know, for this position. But what my follow-up question is this, that again, like when we looked at, and when we tried to build this conference, we tried to find, you know, the most qualified people, but we also were open to diversity, you know, people of color, women, you know, who, like, and we really wanted to hear those different voices. Do you see more women entering the leadership within financial, you know, institutions or fintech? Are you kind of an outlier when it comes to being within a leadership role? And how can there be, if you feel there's any kind of message or takeaway to our audience to increase the roles of women? And the last thing is, I know I'm asking a lot of questions. Is there a like, what do you feel that there's a special energy or something unique that women can bring to the teams?
First of all, if you don't have women on your team, you're not multitasking well. No offense to the men out there, but I could do a study on that right now. So no, I'm just kidding. But you know, so your first question was, am I unique to the leaders, to being a female in leadership? And I would say absolutely not, right? I just think that what I've noticed, at least around my circle of people that I talk to all the time, is it's hard to put yourself out there, right? You've got to put yourself out there to get noticed, to get that experience, to be asked for, you know, to be sorry, I still have a landline. I'm sorry. Anyway, so you have to put yourself out there, right? And you know, really, you have to own your career as well, right? So like, a lot of women are afraid to be bold and step up and just ask for it, right? So you got to manage your career. And I find that, you know, sometimes men are more willing to put themselves out there. So for all my women colleagues out there, if you don't ask for the order, you're never going to get it. So you might as well ask for it. That's the first thing. I'd say to what was your second question? It was, What was your second question?
Well, I don't know if it was the first, second, or 12th question that I asked you, but yeah, I do think that it's like I was wondering how, if you could speak to our audience on, is there anything specific in empowering and getting more women within the management team? I think that you also kind of answered it in saying that if you have women, you're going to get a lot more multitasking.
You will.
So like,
Yeah.
I think that's the question. Like, do you feel do you feel there's something unique that women bring? I mean, to the teams, and do you see like there's a difference in the way that they look at things and
Definitely. Like, I love when I get a pink spreadsheet. It makes me really happy, right? Like, no, but I'm serious. Like when it comes to looking at a problem and problem solving and being in tech, I mean, we deal with complex problem solving all day, and you really need to understand the business and what you're trying to do and all of this. And, it doesn't matter, whether it's a man, a woman, whatever, I want the right people around the table that are going to deliver and help me, drive success for RBC. So, but I will say that if, for the women out there, you have to manage your career and you have to step up and you have to ask for it. Nobody's going to offer it to you. So it's on you. And I think as managers, as male managers out there, it's important. Don't hire a woman just because she's a woman. You're not doing her any favors. You want to hire the right people. And it does undermine women when, people say, oh, well, I hired a woman, we need another director or another aide, whatever. It's kind of like the women that have been working for it, it can kind of undermine how they're feeling. So you want to make sure, that you just treat everybody equally. Like, it's just so basic. And by the way, I didn't know there weren't any women on Wall Street until someone told me.
Did a man tell you?
Of course.
We have time for one last question. Let's bring Shuman on.
By the way, if you need women for your events, I happen to have a lot of them. So
all right.
We'll be in touch. We'll be in touch. Go ahead, Shuman.
Great. Enjoyed your talk very much, Kim. I wanted to pick your brain a little bit about how the pandemic might have accelerated the automation of capital markets transactions, because they're so much more complicated than your typical retail bank transaction, many more parties involved. So be interested to hear your thoughts on that.
I don't think it's slowing us down. I actually think we're more productive on so many levels. People are really, you're not commuting, so you've got a free hour and a half each way, most people, right? You're home, so you tend to be working earlier and working later. And so, I feel like from the development side, we're cranking it out even more so than we ever did before. I think where there could be a slowdown is on the business engagement side and the rollout and training piece. So a new feature or a new piece of tech may be harder to get adoption on if, it's something that they're not waiting for. But I don't think it's really slowing us down. At least I haven't seen that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And with that, I think we've concluded our time. Kim, thank you very much for joining us in the Resilience Conference, and it was wonderful to chat with you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Have a great day.
And with that, we're going to take a break. This is a bigger break during the day. We're going to reconvene at 3:30 p.m. Eastern. We'll be hearing from Omri Dahan, who's the Chief Revenue Officer at Marqeta, as well as Mike Butler after him, the CEO of Radius Banks. Two very interesting stories. Two very different stories going into the pandemic. So take your time, grab a bite. Please join us when we come back.